the NFL gave us last night. Best Monday night game, probably the best football game I've seen in a really, really long time. All right, let's not waste time. Brandon's excited. Let us get right into it. Ravens and Browns, Monday Night Football from Cleveland. Whether you think Baker would outplay Lamar or Lamar would outplay Baker, you would be right. Lamar had 3 touchdowns. Baker had 3 touchdowns and a pick. Lamar had to leave the game with cramps, came back for a wild back and forth fourth quarter. And then the game would come down to a Justin Tucker field goal to finish it. But I mean, not before we saw a little bit of absolutely everything on the ground, in the air, things that upset Nick's betting line. We had it all. In the end, it would be the Ravens coming out on top with the win. Here's head coach John Harbaugh after the game.
With all the things that went on in this game, the timing like you're talking about that right there, I mean, if you wrote a movie about this, people wouldn't believe it. They would say it could never happen. Reality is stranger than fiction, or whatever that saying is. That's kind of what it is here. I mean, it's crazy.
All right, well, Nick, Baker showed up last night. We wondered if he could on the big stage, but Lamar was outstanding. He came off the COVID list, came back out of the locker room in the fourth quarter to do this and get this team back in it and get them the win. Who was more impressive, though, last night, Baker Mayfield or Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, I hate to start the show with a disagreement, but I did not think Lamar was outstanding. I thought that Lamar showed again that he is the most dynamic running quarterback the league has ever seen. But if you went into this football game with serious concerns about the Ravens' ability to pass the football, the 61 yards he had up until there was a minute left in the or 3 minutes left in the football game when he came back on the field didn't exactly allay those concerns. And for Baltimore, their defense, I thought, played the worst game I've seen it play in 3 years. Now, maybe part of the reason the defense played so poorly was because Baker Mayfield was cooking. And can we please, finally, America, put some respect on the man's name? Oh, I want to see him have a signature win. Okay, well, so last week he has the best first half that any player has had in the NFL all season. I'm sorry, Jenna? Go ahead, please.
No, I was just waiting for the signature win. Go ahead, you go.
No.
Sorry, I apologize. I didn't know my mic was on.
No.
I didn't know my microphone was on. I was just waiting for the signature win.
It's good.
Go ahead, sorry.
It's good. Okay, so that was last week when he had the best first half that any players had in the league all year. And then it was, well, I want to see him in the fourth quarter, down 2 scores. Oh, okay. Can we show what Baker Mayfield did? Because he did make one big mistake. He threw a pick. So how did Baker respond after throwing that pick? Do we have that graphic? Because I think he played perfectly. I think he had 3 touchdowns, 2 throwing, 1 rushing, including a 47-second drive with less than 2 minutes remaining to tie the football game. Then Justin Tucker did Justin Tucker things and the Ravens win. But last night, the better quarterback on the field without a shadow of a doubt was Baker Mayfield. Now, his team did not win, but when they were winning 13-10 because of the defense, we said those wins, they won, but he didn't play great. He was outstanding last night against a team that annihilated them in week 1, and it shows massive growth for him and for the team. So to me, clearly, Baker was the more impressive quarterback last night.
Totally disagree with you, Nick. Lamar Jackson did what Lamar Jackson does. Like, this was reminiscent of the 2019 Lamar Jackson. This is the reigning MVP. We were waiting for him to flash like this. We were waiting for a game where he showed his brilliancy and his genius on the field. We know why Lamar Jackson isn't throwing the ball and why he's not putting up huge numbers. I've been talking about it all year. That's Greg Roman. Now, Lamar Jackson, he missed 2 big throws. He missed one to Andrew, and he missed another to another wide receiver. 2 big plays. Yep. Other than that, Lamar Jackson played the game that we're accustomed to seeing. 2019. This is what we've seen Lamar do week in and week out. It's like watching Friday night football. You go to a high school game, and there's always one or two players that stand out to you. There's no names on the jersey. It's just like, man, who is this kid? If I'm a scout out there last night scouting these guys, I'm like, man, Baker Mayfield balled. Lamar Jackson balled. Who are these kids? Now, do you really want to talk about it, though, Nick? Like, you just threw it out like, you tried to twist the stats and you tried to change the angle a little bit, but that pick is significant. We've seen Baker Mayfield go for over 300 yards again. We've seen him flash before. But ball security is job security, yours and mine. We've been talking about it. That's the reason why they lost the game. So if you want to crown him as some type of hero quarterback that played well in the loss, they lost because the biggest indicator in winning and losing in the National Football League is turning the ball over. And he turned the ball over. Yes. He saw that linebacker get underneath the route, and he stared it down, and he threw the ball anyway. That's what Baker Mayfield does. That's the reason why they lost. And that's the reason why I continue to stand on the table and say, look, Baker Mayfield is not the face of the franchise for the next 10 and 15 years until he fixed that problem. Has he played well? Has he eliminated distractions off the field? 100%. But he can't do this in the biggest moments in ball.
Right. And he's not going to be a guy who throws 0 interceptions a season, because that player has never existed. He did go 187 pass attempts without an interception, but that was a really bad one. But to say that's the reason they lost ignores what happened in the fourth quarter of that football game. After that
they lost
play,
the game.
They took the... Oh, yes, Brandon, I am aware they lost the game. I promise I watched. But after that play, they took the lead. After that play, when the Ravens then went down and scored, he drove them down to tie the game. In a game where his team scored 42 points, 21 in the fourth quarter, including a go-ahead fourth quarter drive and a game-tying fourth quarter drive with 1 minute remaining, to say a third quarter interception is the reason they lost the game, and to say Lamar, that was not MVP Lamar. MVP Lamar.
That was MVP Lamar. Any athlete watching that game last night would say this is one of the best athletes I've ever seen. We know Lamar Jackson. Yes. That's the same storyline. We know he's not going to throw for 300 yards. And I'm telling you the reason. The reason why is because there's no continuity in their offense. Lamar Jackson is who he is right now because of...
Brandon, last year they had the same offense, and when he won MVP, you're right, he wasn't throwing for 300. But he was throwing for over 200 a game. And so last night, when he's got 80 yards passing through 3.5 quarters and finishes with 160, that was not the way he won the MVP. He's not going to be 300 a game, but he wasn't 160 a game either.
Like, well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question, Nick. All right, so you want to highlight Baker Mayfield. Baker was great. They lost the game. The last I remember, it's about winning and losing. Like, do we really want to crown these guys? If we do, if it's about, look, he played well, then tell me who gets the game ball. Who in the Cleveland Browns locker room gets the game ball?
Nobody gets the game ball because they lost. And Wilds, I want to let Wilds, maybe I'm living in a house of mirrors, but correct me if I'm wrong, Wilds. When the Browns were on a 4-game winning streak, playing in windstorms and rainstorms, and Baker was throwing for 110 yards, was the conversation on this show, doesn't matter, they won, Baker gets the game ball, doesn't matter? Or was it, we need to see him do more? And so, like, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it's just been, if the Browns win, Baker played great. If they lose, he played terribly. That's not quite how I remember it. But you be the
let me tell you. Let me remind you. No. Let me remind you. Sorry, Wilds, but let me remind you, Nick. What's the story? The story is, when is Baker Mayfield going to throw for over 300 yards? When is Baker Mayfield going to be the reason why they win and not the run game? Kevin Stefanski. Well, they lost last night, Nick. They lost last night. Yes, he's done it twice. He's done it twice in the season, Nick. He's done it twice in the season.
Well, the 3 touchdowns against Cincinnati
is running the ball and playing good defense. Yeah, Cincinnati.
Like
we know he
Baltimore's
beats
is.
on the Cincinnati Bengals. He beats on the Jacksonville Jaguars.
So
we
their
wanted to see him
recipe for
do
success
this
is running
against
the ball.
the Baltimore Ravens. So I'm reminding you what the conversation was
did it
a
against
couple
the
weeks
Baltimore
ago.
Ravens. I need
Let's
to
see
hear
him
from
do
you,
this
buddy.
He
against
just
Baltimore
did it
and the
against the
Pittsburgh
Baltimore
Steelers.
Ravens.
He lost. Do it in a win. You lost. Nobody's going to remember this next year. Nobody's going to remember him playing lights out against the Baltimore Ravens because he lost the game.
Okay.
We have hours upon hours to continue to discuss, and we will, I promise you, Wilds, get you in here, but we got to switch gears to talk about the MVP award. Can Aaron Rodgers still steal it away from Patrick Mahomes? Just to stress Nick out a little